February 30, 1944, 1:47 p.m. Berlin. The radar operator's hand freezes on the plotting table. Formation. Large formation. Bearing 270, altitude 7,500 meters, range 80 kilometers. His voice cuts through the operations room of FLAK Division 1. 23 men snap to attention. Phone lines light up across the Reich's capital. Across Berlin, air raid sirens begin their familiar wail. On top of the massive concrete FLAK tower at the Berlin Zoo, one of three fortress-like structures dominating the city's skyline, Obergefreiter Klaus Becker checks his gun crew one final time. 8 men, one 128mm twin-barreled anti-aircraft gun, 46 tons of steel capable of hurling a 28-kilogram shell 6 miles into the sky. The gun barrel elevates. Hydraulics whine. The entire platform rotates with mechanical precision. Through his binoculars, Becker spots them. Dots. Dozens of them. Hundreds, growing larger by the second. American B-17 flying fortresses. Coming straight for Berlin in broad daylight. Range 12,000, the fire director operator shouts. Fuse setting 7.5. Ready. Becker grips the firing handle. Across Berlin, 504 heavy anti-aircraft guns and 220 light guns track the same targets. Würzburg radar dishes follow the formations. Fire directors calculate intercept points. Fuse setters spin timing rings on high explosive shells. Fire. The 128mm gun roars. The recoil system absorbs 200 tons of force. The shell screams into the sky at 880 meters per second. All across Berlin, the skyline erupts. Hundreds of guns firing in coordinated barrages. The sound is overwhelming, a continuous thunder that shakes windows and sets off car alarms blocks away. Above the city, the American formation flies into a curtain of exploding steel. Black puffs blossom among the bombers. Then orange flowers with dark centers, the dangerous ones, the close hits. Shrapnel tears through aluminum skin. Engines trail smoke. A B-17 in the lead formation shudders, noses over, begins its death spiral. Another explodes. Just disintegrates. A direct hit on the bomb bay. One moment it's a bomber. The next it's debris and an expanding fireball. 21 bombers fall that day. Some estimates say 25. Becker watches them tumble from the sky and feels something close to invincibility. His gun crew has been training together for 18 months. Professional Luftwaffe soldiers. The best equipment in the world. The most heavily defended city in Europe. This is what confidence looks like. This is what power feels like. This is the moment when German FLAK crews believe the sky belongs to them. What Becker doesn't know, what he can't know, is that in 16 months, boys half his age will stand at these same guns, with almost no ammunition, watching 1,000 bomber formations pass overhead, with barely a shot fired in return. The graveyard is coming. It will consume everything. Let's rewind. January 27, 1943. 11:47 p.m. The Ruhr Valley. Flight Sergeant David Wells sits in the rear turret of Lancaster bomber V. Victor, watching the horizon behind him. What he sees makes his blood run cold. The entire southern horizon is flickering with light. Not searchlights. Those are already sweeping the sky, dozens of them forming luminous cones that trap bombers like insects in amber. No, this is something else. FLAK. Miles and miles of FLAK. Jesus Christ, he whispers into his intercom. Skipper, you seeing this? The pilot has no time to respond. V. Victor is already flying into what aircrews call the FLAK belt, the wall of exploding steel that guards Germany's industrial heartland. Wells watches a Halifax bomber, 300 yards to port, get bracketed by 3 bursts. The first one low. The second one high. The third one is perfect. The Halifax's right wing separates from the fuselage. The bomber cartwheels, spinning wildly, trailing flame and debris. 7 men aboard. Wells sees no parachutes. Corkscrew port, the pilot screams. V. Victor throws herself into violent evasive maneuvers. Wells is slammed against his turret, his oxygen mask cutting into his face. The G-forces are crushing. A shell explodes 10 yards from their tail, close enough that Wells can feel the concussion through the aircraft's structure. Shrapnel rattles off the fuselage, like someone throwing gravel against a tin roof. The Lancaster levels out, somehow still flying. "Everyone check in," the pilot calls. One by one, the 7-man crew reports. All alive. All functional. For now. They haven't even reached the target yet. 12,000 feet below Feldwebel, Heinrich Müller stands beside his 88mm FLAK 36, watching the tracer rounds from lighter guns draw luminous lines across the night sky. His gun crew is a machine, 8 men working in perfect synchronization. The loader slams a 20-pound shell into the breech. The fuse setter spins the mechanical timer, 7.2 seconds to 4,000 meters. The gunner tracks the target through his sight. The layer adjusts elevation and traverse based on data fed from the fire director 30 meters away. At the fire director, 2 operators work the prediction computer, a mechanical marvel of gears and cams that calculates where the target will be in the seconds it takes the shell to reach altitude. Behind them, a 4-meter optical range finder tracks the bomber caught in searchlight beams. The operator calls out range 4200. Bearing steady. Target not maneuvering. The fire director cranks handles. Gears mesh. The solution appears on dials. Data flows to Müller's gun through electrical cables. The gun automatically slews left 2 degrees, elevates 3 more. Fire. The 88mm roars. The shell is already gone before the sound reaches Müller's ears despite his protective headphones. 4.2 seconds later, the shell explodes among the bomber formation. One of 60 guns firing in this sector. One of hundreds firing across the Ruhr that night. Müller's gun has 3 white rings painted on its barrel. 3 confirmed kills. Tonight has aiming for number 4. This is Flugabwehrkanone, anti-aircraft cannon, FLAK. And in early 1943, it is devastatingly effective. The numbers don't lie. Between January and March 1943, RAF Bomber Command loses 96 aircraft to German fighters during night raids over Europe. But FLAK guns destroy 90 aircraft in the same period, nearly matching fighters despite operating at night in weather through clouds against targets moving at 200 miles per hour 4 miles above the Earth. The damage statistics are even more stark. Fighters damage 81 British bombers in those 3 months. FLAK damages 724. 9-1. For every bomber a fighter manages to hit but not destroy, FLAK guns are hammering 9 more. And when conditions favor the gunners, clear weather, good visibility, concentrated defenses, the ratios get even worse for the attackers. In the first 20 months of the war, German FLAK forces averaged 805 rounds per aircraft destroyed. Given that each 88mm shell costs 80 Reichsmarks, that's about 224,000 Reichsmarks per kill, roughly 90,000 in 1943 dollars. Expensive, but effective. Müller and his crew are professionals. Luftwaffe soldiers with years of training. They know their equipment. They trust their doctrine. They believe in their mission. They have every reason for confidence. Understanding why German FLAK is so formidable in 1942 and early 1943 requires understanding the system. It's not just guns. It's an integrated air defense network that took decades to develop. The foundation is early warning. The Luftnachrichtentruppe, Air Reporting Service, operates observation posts across Germany and occupied territories. Radar stations along the coasts pick up incoming raids while they're still over the North Sea or English Channel. By the time bombers reach Germany, proper FLAK commanders know they're coming. Sector by sector, the defenses activate. First, the searchlights. Berlin has 420 of them by 1944. Each one is a 150-centimeter carbon arc lamp powered by its own generator, capable of illuminating aircraft at 20,000 feet. Their beams are visible for dozens of miles. The searchlight crews, often including women by 1943, work in coordination with sound detectors. These are acoustic devices, essentially giant directional microphones mounted on rotating platforms. Operators wearing headphones listen for engine noise, manually tracking the bearing of approaching aircraft. Sound detectors are already obsolete by 1943. But they work when radar doesn't, in heavy jamming or when radar is blinded. The real revolution came in 1941, the Würzburg gun-laying radar. It's a dish antenna roughly 3 meters across, mounted on a rotating platform. Unlike the Freya long-range early warning radar, the Würzburg is designed for precision tracking. It can lock onto a single aircraft and follow it with uncanny accuracy, feeding bearing elevation and range data directly to the fire control system. Suddenly, German FLAK can hit targets through clouds. At night, in weather that would have made accurate fire impossible just a year earlier. The Würzburg changes the game. But the heart of the system is the fire director. It looks like an oversized surveying instrument. A platform with optical sights, mechanical computers, and analog calculating devices. 4-meter rangefinders determine distance. Operators crank handles to input target data. Gears and cams compute the firing solution, where the target will be when the shell arrives. The solution flows electrically to the guns, which automatically slew and elevate to match. When it all works together, early warning searchlights, radar fire directors, guns, it's a killing machine. The guns themselves are engineering marvels. The famous 88mm FLAK 36 and FLAK 37 models form the backbone of Germany's defenses. Originally designed as a dual-purpose weapon, anti-aircraft and anti-tank, the 88 has an effective ceiling of about 26,000 feet. Its 20-pound shell can punch through a bomber's aluminum skin like tissue paper. Each gun requires an 8 to 10-man crew. The loader rams shells into the breech. The fuse setter adjusts the mechanical time fuse, a clockwork mechanism that detonates the shell at a predetermined altitude. The gunner and layer control traverse and elevation. The breech operator closes the breech and fires. Ammunition handlers keep a steady supply of shells flowing. Supporting them are the specialists at the fire director, the radar operators, the searchlight crews, the telephone operators maintaining communication links between battery positions. For targets above the 88's effective range, there's the 105mm FLAK 40. A twin-barreled monster weighing 46 tons that can engage targets at 35,000 feet, well above the operational ceiling of any Allied bomber. At the lower altitudes, fast-firing 20mm and 37mm light FLAK guns create a screen of lead against low-level attackers. By early 1943, Germany deploys over 10,000 heavy and light FLAK guns defending the Reich and occupied territories. The doctrine is sophisticated. Against concentrated raids, FLAK batteries create box barrages, three-dimensional zones of exploding shells that bombers must fly through to reach their targets. Against scattered attacks, guns engage individual targets with predicted fire. In clear weather with optical tracking, the system is devastatingly accurate. Studies show optical fire control is 5 times more effective than radar-directed fire. In poor weather, or at night, radar takes over. The crews take pride in their work. Each confirmed kill earns a white ring painted on the gun barrel. Some guns sport 4, 5, 6 rings. The competition between crews is fierce. The faith in FLAK extends to the highest levels. Adolf Hitler witnessed the effectiveness of anti-aircraft fire during World War I. Unlike many Nazi leaders, he has direct combat experience with air attack. He knows what FLAK can do. Throughout the war, Hitler consistently prioritizes FLAK over fighters. When advisors plead for more day fighters to intercept American bombers, Hitler argues for more FLAK guns. When resources must be allocated between aircraft production and anti-aircraft artillery, Hitler chooses guns. It's not entirely irrational. A fighter aircraft requires a trained pilot, a resource that takes months to develop and cannot be replaced once killed. A fighter requires aviation fuel, which Germany desperately lacks. A fighter can be shot down, lost forever. A FLAK gun sits in position and fires until its barrel wears out or an enemy bomb destroys it. It requires no pilot. It runs on ammunition which Germany can manufacture. And it provides psychological reassurance to the civilian population. Visible, tangible defense. Hitler's preference shapes the entire air defense strategy of the Third Reich. In February 1943, propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels records in his diary Hitler's ambition to expand the FLAK to a grandiose extent. Hitler envisions equipping the Reich with so much FLAK by fall 1943 that any penetration of the FLAK belt belonged to the realm of the improbable, if not to say the impossible. It's a fantasy. But in early 1943, it doesn't seem like one. The guns are working. August 17, 1943, 2:14 p.m. Somewhere over Bavaria, Captain Robert Morgan piloting B-17F. Our gal Sal sees the first FLAK bursts ahead. Small black puffs, still distant, almost pretty in the clear afternoon sunlight. Then closer bursts. Then the formation is flying into a storm of steel. Morgan's mission today is part of a massive two-pronged attack. One force hitting Regensburg's Messerschmitt factories, another striking the ball-bearing plants at Schweinfurt. 361 B-17s in total. The deepest penetration into Germany the 8th Air Force has yet attempted. Schweinfurt's defenses are ready. 23 heavy FLAK batteries, 5 light FLAK batteries, 6 searchlight battalions, smoke generators to obscure the factories, and fighters, dozens of fighters, attacking in waves before and after the bomb run. The bombardier's voice crackles, bomb bay doors open. IP in 30 seconds. The initial point. The turn onto the bomb run. From here they fly straight and level. No evasive maneuvers. The bombardier needs a steady platform. It's every FLAK gunner's dream, a target that can't maneuver. The first shell explodes directly below our gal Sal. The B-17 lurches upward from the concussion. Shrapnel rattles through the fuselage. Morgan hears the pinging sounds like handfuls of gravel thrown at a car. Number 3 engine hit. The co-pilot shouts. Morgan glances at the engine instruments. Oil pressure dropping. Temperature rising. Number 3 is dying. Feather it. The propeller blades rotate to minimize drag. The B-17 continues on 3 engines. Another burst, this one to starboard. Close enough that Morgan can see the red-orange flash at the heart of the black smoke. A bomber ahead. Morgan doesn't know which one. Takes a direct hit to the wing root. The wing folds upward, the bomber rolls inverted, and suddenly it's falling, spinning, breaking apart. Morgan counts 3 parachutes. The B-17 carries 10 men. Bombs away. The B-17 leaps as 3 tons of high explosive drop free. Let's get the hell out of here. The formation wheels away from Schweinfurt. Behind them, explosions ripple across the ball-bearing factories. When the 8th Air Force counts its losses that day, the numbers are sobering. 60 bombers destroyed. 19% of the attacking force. German fighters claim 46 confirmed kills. Impressive, devastating. But look closer at the statistics. FLAK gets credit for 5 direct shootdowns over Schweinfurt. Not much compared to fighters. Except 8 additional bombers fall to fighters only after being damaged by FLAK first. That's the hidden statistic. The bomber that takes shrapnel through a wing slows down, falls behind the formation's protective crossfire. It becomes easy prey. The fighter that would have struggled against a healthy bomber in tight formation picks it off effortlessly. 13 shootdowns with FLAK involvement, 22% of total losses. And damage? 203 bombers launched by the first bombardment wing. Of those, almost a third return with FLAK damage. Holes in wings, shredded control surfaces, hydraulic leaks, wounded crew, 1/3. Every third bomber. For the crews, the statistics translate to terror. Lieutenant Philip Artery will later write, "The most soul-shaking fear in combat flying was the fear of FLAK. You can't fight back at FLAK. You can't take evasive action. You just sit there and take it while some son of a bitch on the ground tries to kill you. The fear has a name: FLAK happy." 8th Air Force psychiatric studies document crews exhibiting profound mental distress, anxiety, nightmares, inability to function. Some airmen simply break. Others develop eccentricities, compulsions, pre-flight rituals that grow more elaborate with each mission. The psychological impact of FLAK exceeds even fighter attacks. A fighter you can see track shoot at. You can watch your gunners drive him off. Tier. Agency. FLAK just happens. Black puffs appear. If you're lucky, they're not close. If you're unlucky, one of them has your name on it. You hear the sharp crack of the explosion, feel the aircraft shudder here. Shrapnel tearing through metal. Or worse, through men. You can't do anything about it except fly through and hope. October 14th, 1943. Mission 105th. The 8th Air Force returns to Schweinfurt. This time, they know what's waiting. This time, they plan for it. More bombers. Better tactics. Tighter formations. 291 B-17s dispatched. 229 reach the target. The weather is perfect. Clear skies. Unlimited visibility. Which means the German gunners have perfect visibility too. The FLAK defenses have been reinforced since August. Schweinfurt now ranks among the most heavily defended targets in Germany per square mile. The city is surrounded by a fortress of anti-aircraft positions. The bomber formations fly into a maelstrom. Flight engineer John Comer, aboard a 100th Bomb Group B-17, will later recall, "As we approached the target, the enormous field of FLAK ahead was unbelievable. And frightening. My thoughts were, good God, can anything fly through that?" For some aircraft, the answer is no. The FLAK batteries fire with mechanical precision. Würzburg radars track the formations. Fire directors compute solutions. Gun crews load, and fire, maintaining a sustained barrage. 11 bombers fall to FLAK over Schweinfurt itself. One more goes down near Karlsruhe, on the return flight, damaged so badly it crashes in Switzerland. But those direct shootdowns tell only part of the story. 17 bombers suffer major damage. Structural failure, critical systems destroyed, wounded crew requiring immediate medical attention. The kind of damage that might be repairable but keeps an aircraft out of combat for weeks or months. 121 more bombers return with FLAK damage but remain operational. Holes patched, hydraulics refilled, new glass for shattered windows. The maintenance crews work through the night, every night, repairing what the FLAK destroys. In total, the 8th Air Force loses 60 bombers on the second Schweinfurt raid, almost 17%. Combined with fighter attacks before and after the target, it's catastrophic. The official Army Air Force's history will later state, "The 8th Air Force had reached a crisis." After Schweinfurt, there are no more deep penetration raids into Germany for the remainder of 1943. The loss rate is unsustainable. The bomber force needs time to rebuild, re-equip, and most importantly, wait for the long-range escort fighters that can protect them all the way to target and back. For the German FLAK crews manning the guns around Schweinfurt October 14th is a triumph. They've turned back the Americans, killed dozens of bombers, damaged hundreds more, protected their city. The white rings on the gun barrels multiply. The confidence grows. This is the peak. This is as good as it gets. The turning point comes 3 months earlier, and it begins with a city burning. July 24, 1943, 11:28 p.m., 80 miles off the German coast. Radar operator Gefreiter Hans Weber sits in his darkened plotting room, eyes fixed on the Würzburg display screen. Hess tracking an inbound raid. Big one. The returns show a massive formation approaching from the northwest, probably Hamburg, maybe Bremen. Hard to tell at this range. Then something impossible happens. The single cluster of returns on his screen suddenly multiplies. 2 targets become 4. 4 become 8. 8 become dozens. Within 30 seconds, Weber's screen looks like someone threw sand at it. Hundreds of returns clustered so thick the individual dots merge into a glowing mass. Sector Command, this is Station 12. Weber speaks into his headset, trying to keep his voice steady. I have a malfunction. Request backup confirmation on Station 12, Sector Command. We confirm. All stations reporting same phenomenon. Stand by. But they're not standing by. Across the entire early warning network, every Würzburg radar is displaying the same impossible picture. Sky full of targets. Thousands of them. Weber stares at his screen. An indecipherable jumble of echo points resembling giant insects from which nothing could be recognized at all. That's how Hell described it in his after-action report. What Weber is witnessing is window. Millions of strips of aluminum foil, each cut to exactly half the wavelength of German radar frequencies, dropped in bundles from British bombers. The RAF has known about this countermeasure for 2 years. They've been terrified to use it, fearing the Germans would copy it and use it against British radar. But tonight, with Hamburg as the target, Bomber Command finally unleashes window. The effect is catastrophic. Searchlight operator Maria Schneider, one of the Luftwaffe's Blitzmädchen female auxiliaries, sweeps her 150-centimeter light across the sky in increasingly frantic arcs. Nothing. Her director has given her a bearing and elevation based on radar data, but when her beam reaches that point, there's nothing there. Just empty sky. She sweeps left, right, up, down. Finally, she catches one. A 4-engine bomber caught in her light for just a moment before it slips away. She tries to track it but loses it immediately. The bomber is corkscrewing, throwing itself through violent, evasive maneuvers. Another searchlight crew catches it, then loses it. The bomber escapes. All across Hamburg's defense network, searchlights wander aimlessly. The coordination system has collapsed. The radar data that usually directs searchlights to targets is useless. Every direction shows targets, which means no direction is reliable. At a heavy flak battery on Hamburg's outskirts, Feldwebel Otto Richter faces an impossible choice. His Würzburg can't track. His fire director has no reliable target data. The searchlights haven't coned a bomber in 15 minutes. He can hear them, though. The deep throb of Merlin engines. Hundreds of them. Somewhere up there in the darkness, the British bomber stream is passing overhead. His orders are clear. No standing barrage fire over Hamburg itself. Too much risk of hitting buildings, killing civilians. But outside the city limits, battery load, high explosive fuse setting 75 Richter orders. Well, fire a box pattern sector northwest, altitude 4,500 meters. It's called Sperrfeuer, barrier fire. Filling a zone of sky with exploding steel and hoping a bomber flies through it. It's wasteful, inefficient, a last resort. It's all they have. Richter's 6 guns open fire in sequence, pumping shells into the darkness at 10-second intervals. The pattern will create a rough cube of explosions northwest of the city. Whether they hit anything is pure chance. Of the 791 RAF bombers dispatched against Hamburg that night, exactly 12 failed to return. 1.5% losses. For comparison, losses on recent Hamburg raids averaged 4 to 6%. Tonight, facing the same defenses with Window, the loss rate drops by 2/3. The bombs fall on Hamburg with devastating accuracy. The Pathfinder force markers burn bright and clear. The main force follows them in. 1,500 civilians die. 200,000 lose their homes. And the Luftwaffe's vaunted air defense system barely scratches the attackers. In his diary that night, Joseph Goebbels writes, "With this attack, the illusions that many have made relative to the continued progression of the enemy's air operations will be finally destroyed." 2 days later, Field Marshal Erhard Milch addresses an emergency meeting. "We are no longer on the offensive. For the last 1.5 or 2 years we have been on the defensive. This fact is now apparently recognized even at the highest levels." The bitter irony. Germany tested their own version of Window. They called it Duppel, in trials over the Baltic Sea in winter 1942. The tests proved it would badly affect ground-based radar. One engineer warned Milch directly, "If they shower clouds of these strips out over a big city, they will remain suspended for about 20 or 30 minutes in the air, and render our Würzburg radar temporarily blind." But the Luftwaffe kept the trials absolutely secret. They prohibited work on countermeasures for fear of alerting the Allies to the technique. Now the Allies have discovered it independently. And the Germans have no defenses. Hamburg's agony continues. July 27th to 28. The RAF returns. 700 bombers. Over 200-300 tons of high explosives and incendiary bombs. This time the concentration is perfect. The fires from the previous raids still smolder. The city's water mains are broken. The weather is dry. What happens next has a name: Feuersturm, firestorm. The individual fires merge into a single conflagration that creates its own weather. Superheated air rises with such force it pulls in fresh oxygen from all directions. Wind speeds at street level reach 150 miles per hour. The fire literally sucks air from basements and shelters, suffocating thousands who never see the flames. The temperature at the fire's core reaches 1400 degrees Fahrenheit. Asphalt streets melt. 3-foot diameter trees are ripped from the ground by the wind. Thick wooden pilings in the canals burn down to water level. 40,000 people die in a single night. The canals become both refuge and death trap. People dive into the water to escape the heat, but houses collapse into the canals, crushing them. Others simply drown from exhaustion, unable to stay afloat, as the fire rages for hours. And through it all, the flak guns fire blind, unable to track, unable to aim, reduced to flinging shells randomly into the sky and hoping. But the Americans prove that daylight is different. July 25th, the day after the first Window raid. 68 B-17s attack Hamburg's U-boat yards in broad daylight. The Würzburg radars are still blind from chaff, but the skies are clear. And in daylight with optical fire directors, the flak guns don't need radar. 19 B-17s fail to return. 5 confirmed kills to flak. 28% loss rate. Catastrophic. The next day, almost 200 American bombers attack targets across northwest Germany. 24 lost. 7 confirmed to flak. Over 10% losses in 2 days. The lesson is clear. Window blinds radar, but it doesn't stop optically directed flak. In clear weather with good visibility, German gunners remain lethal. Studies will later confirm that optical fire control is 5 times more effective than radar-directed fire. But night raids? Window has fundamentally changed the equation, and 2/3 of raids against Germany are at night. The Luftwaffe scrambles to adapt. They improve optical targeting procedures. They train crews to wait for gaps in the chaff coverage. They develop new radar frequencies less affected by window. It's not enough. In the coming months, night losses to FLAK will drop significantly. The system that worked so well through early 1943 is crippled. The first crack in the armor has appeared. November 18, 1943. Air Chief Marshal Arthur Harris issues orders for Operation Whitebait, what will become known as the Battle of Berlin. Harris is convinced that sustained bombing can break Germany's will to fight. Berlin is the ultimate target, the enemy's capital, the heart of the Nazi state. The RAF will attack it again and again until it burns. Between November 1943 and March 1944, Bomber Command launches 19 major raids against Berlin. The city's defenses are formidable: 504 heavy guns, 220 light guns, 420 searchlights, and 3 massive flak towers, concrete fortresses rising 130 feet above the city, each mounting 4 twin-barreled 128mm guns on the roof and dozens of lighter weapons on the sides. The towers are architectural nightmares, brutalist concrete monoliths designed to withstand any bomb in the Allied arsenal. They serve as gun platforms, command centers, hospitals, and air raid shelters for thousands of civilians. They're also psychological weapons. Visible for miles, they project power and permanence. But the Battle of Berlin reveals another crack in the FLAK system: the firing restriction. To avoid hitting their own night fighters and to reduce civilian casualties from falling shell fragments, the Luftwaffe prohibits sustained barrage fire directly over Berlin itself. Guns must track and engage specific targets or fire barrier patterns on the approaches to the city. It severely limits the FLAK's effectiveness. The very defenses meant to protect Berlin are hobbled by restrictions designed to protect Berlin. On the night of March 24, 1944, 811 bombers attack the capital. Squadron leader John Chatterton, piloting a Lancaster, watches the FLAK come up. The FLAK over Berlin was particularly vicious. Boxes of fire through which we had to fly. Chatterton's aircraft makes it through. But nearby another Lancaster isn't as lucky. Mid-upper gunner Jack Brennan watches it happen. There was a sudden blinding flash and the aircraft in front just disappeared. I mean, it was there one moment, and the next, gone. A direct hit. The Lancaster's bomb load detonates. 10 men aboard, 0 survivors. Another Lancaster, Q Queenie, gets caught by searchlights. The pilot, Frank Levy, throws the bomber into a corkscrew. Maximum rate turns combined with diving and climbing. 4 Gs, 5 Gs. Crew members slam against bulkheads. Oxygen masks tear loose. The searchlights follow 6 beams locked on. FLAK brackets the aircraft. Shells above below on both sides. Levy keeps corkscrewing. Left down, right up. The Lancaster's controls are screaming. The airframe is shuddering from the stress. For 90 seconds that feel like 90 minutes, Q Queenie writhes through the searchlight cone. Then suddenly, they're clear. Darkness. Blessed darkness. Levy's hands are shaking so badly he can barely hold the controls. 72 bombers don't come home from the Berlin raid on March 24th. One of the highest loss totals of the war. Best estimates suggest 50 fall to FLAK. The rest to night fighters. It's a bloodbath. But look at the other side of the equation. Berlin, 3,589 civilians killed across the entire campaign. Over 200,000 homeless. The city damaged but still functioning. RAF Bomber Command 351 aircraft destroyed over Berlin alone. If you count aircraft that crashed in England or were damaged beyond repair, the number rises to 606. The equivalent of 24 squadrons. Gone. 1,787 airmen killed. 506 captured. And what did Harris achieve? In his post-war memoir, Hell claimed the losses could not be considered excessive. The official RAF history will call the Battle of Berlin more than a failure. The FLAK, even hamstrung by firing restrictions, took a terrible toll. Meanwhile, in daylight, the Americans face their own reckoning. March 6, 1944. The 8th Air Force attacks Berlin in daylight for the first time. 730 bombers dispatched. 672 reach target. The city's FLAK defenses are ready. No firing restrictions during daylight. Fighters aren't operating in the same airspace. The guns can fire freely. And they do. Captain John Regan, piloting a B-17 with the 91st Bomb Group, watches the FLAK start before they even reach the city. FLAK 12 o'clock level. The first bursts are probing shots. The German gunners are finding the range, the altitude. Then the sky turns black. Regan has flown 23 missions. Has seen heavy FLAK over Schweinfurt, over the Ruhr, over every major industrial target in Germany. This is different. This is a wall of steel. The B-17 formation flies into it like ships sailing into a storm. With is no going around. No way over or under. You point the nose at the target and you fly through, and you pray. A bomber ahead takes a direct hit to the number 2 engine. The engine tears loose from the wing, taking half the cowling with it. The B-17 drops out of formation, losing altitude, trailing black smoke. 3 Me-109s peel off to finish it. Another burst rocks Regan's aircraft. Shrapnel punches through the fuselage with sharp metallic pings. The waist gunner screams. Hit in the leg. How bad? Shrapnel. I'm okay. Still got the gun. The bomb run feels like it lasts hours. In reality, 3 minutes. 3 minutes of flying straight and level while German gunners walk their fire onto the formation. Bombs away. The B-17 leaps upward, suddenly 4,000 pounds lighter. Regan banks hard right, pulling out of the target area. Behind them, Berlin's industrial district disappears under a carpet of explosions. Ahead, 200 miles of hostile territory before they reach the North Sea. When the 8th Air Force tallies the losses, the numbers are stark. 71 bombers destroyed. 12 more damaged beyond repair. There. Made it back to England but will never fly again. 83 aircraft. Gone. 50 bombers fall to fighters. 14 to FLAK directly. But 5 more go down to fighters only after being damaged by FLAK. And 2 reportedly fall to FLAK after first being damaged by fighters, though those pilots probably would have saved their aircraft if not for the FLAK. The damage statistics tell the real story. 318 bombers return with FLAK damage, 48% of the entire force. Every other bomber. 5 aircraft are damaged beyond repair by FLAK alone. 3 more damaged beyond repair by combined FLAK and fighter action. But here's what the raw numbers don't capture: the hidden effects. That B-17 that takes shrapnel through the hydraulic system. It makes it home, but the landing gear won't extend properly. The aircraft ground loops on landing, blocking the runway for 2 hours. 2 other damaged bombers are forced to divert to different airfields. One runs out of fuel waiting for the runway to clear, and crash lands in a field. The crew survives, but the aircraft is a write-off. That bomber that takes FLAK damage to the oxygen system. 3 crew members pass out from hypoxia during the fight home. They survive, but one has permanent brain damage. Hell, never fly again. That B-17 with shrapnel through the fuselage looks repairable, but inspection reveals the shrapnel severed control cables and damaged the main spar. The aircraft is grounded for 3 weeks of repairs. That's 63 missions it can't fly. 63 times 10 men can't contribute to the war effort. Multiply these hidden effects across hundreds of damaged bombers. The 8th Air Force returns to England and counts the cost. 71 bombers destroyed. But the actual impact on combat capability is far higher. And the crews who survive, they climb out of their aircraft shaking. Some literally cannot stop shaking. Flight surgeons dose them with whiskey and send them to bed. Tomorrow there will be another mission. More FLAK. More friends dying. The psychological toll is cumulative. In a psychiatric study of 8th Air Force crews between July 1942 and July 1942 and July 1943, before the worst of the FLAK, Army doctors document the trauma, watching close-in and constant enemy fighter attacks, flying through impenetrable walls of FLAK, seeing neighboring planes tumble out of control and at times explode in mid-air, imposed a severe and repeated stress. By 1944, the stress is worse. The FLAK is heavier. The losses are mounting. Some crews develop what's called FLAK happy, a state of hypervigilance anxiety, inability to sleep. Others coin the term Focke-Wulf jitters for the cumulative psychological damage from combat. And unlike fighters, you can't shoot back at FLAK. You can't evade it effectively. You just sit in your aluminum tube while explosions bracket your aircraft and shrapnel tears through metal and flesh, and you wait to see if the next burst has your name on it. Let's talk about who's manning those guns. January 1943. The manpower crisis begins. Germany is fighting on 3 fronts: Russia, North Africa, and the air war over the Reich. Every front is consuming soldiers faster than they can be replaced. The Luftwaffe's fighter arm is hemorrhaging pilots. In the first 8 months of 1943 alone, they lose 788 fighter pilots killed or missing. That's 7 pilots per day. Every day. For 8 months. The FLAK arm needs 55,000 men just to operate the guns defending Germany and occupied territories. Add the radar operators, searchlight crews, fire directors, ammunition handlers, maintenance personnel. The number balloons to over 200,000. Where do you find 200,000 men when the Eastern Front is screaming for every available soldier? You don't. So you compromise. On January 12, 1943, the Luftwaffe implements a new policy: Luftwaffenhelfer, Air Force helpers, boys, 15 to 17 years old, pulled directly from schools. At first it's voluntary. Then it becomes mandatory. Every boy in those age groups must serve 1 year with the FLAK batteries before he can graduate. Unteroffizier Werner Schmidt gets his new crew assignments in February 1943. Has a professional soldier, 5 years in the Luftwaffe, 2 years operating an 88mm gun. He looks at the roster. 8 names. 8 teenagers. The oldest is 17. The youngest, the loader, is 15. Just turned 15 2 weeks ago. Schmidt has trained recruits before. Boot camp graduates at least 18 years old, at least physically mature. These are children. You'll train them, the battery commander says. We have 4 weeks before they're operational. 4 weeks to turn schoolboys into gun crews. Schmidt does his best. The boys are eager, at least. Terrified, but eager. They want to defend the fatherland. They want to shoot down enemy bombers. What they don't want is to die. But they're 15 years old. They can't really conceive of dying. Death is something that happens to other people. The training is basic. How to load a shell. How to set a fuse. How to operate the breech. How to take cover during an air raid. What Schmidt can't teach them in 4 weeks is experience. The muscle memory that comes from hundreds of repetitions. The calm under pressure. the ability to keep working when shells are exploding and comrades are dying. You can't train that in 4 weeks. You can barely train it in 4 months. But 4 weeks is all they have. By summer 1943, the FLAK batteries are filling with teenagers and women. The Blitzmädchen, Lightning Girls, are female Luftwaffe auxiliaries recruited starting in 1943. Initially, they handle support roles, operating searchlights, maintaining barrage balloons, cleaning optical equipment, handling logistics. Then the manpower crisis deepens. By 1944, women are operating radar equipment, plotting targets, feeding data to fire directors. Everything except actually firing the guns, though even that boundary will blur in the final months of the war. Hildegard Koch is 21 when She's assigned to a searchlight battery outside Hamburg. She's a secretary from Berlin. No military training beyond a 6-week crash course. Her crew is 4 women and 1 older man. The supervisor, age 56, medically unfit for frontline service. The searchlight is a 150-centimeter carbon arc lamp. The generator alone weighs 800 kilograms. The entire assembly requires constant maintenance. Koch learns to operate the equipment, perform basic repairs, coordinate with the radar station. She works 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. When the RAF raids come, she and her crew track bombers through the night sky, trying to illuminate targets for the flak guns. She hears the bombs falling on Hamburg, sees the fires, smells the smoke carried on the wind. She's 21 years old. The Home Guard batteries, Heimat Flak Batterien, represent the bottom of the barrel. Men too old for frontline service. Boys too young for the regular military. Anyone who can load a shell and follow basic orders. By 1944, there are 262 Home Guard heavy flak batteries operating within the Reich. They're equipped with obsolete 88mm flak 36-36 models, the same guns that were state-of-the-art in 1936, but are now worn out with barrels degraded from tens of thousands of rounds fired. Some batteries get modified 75mm guns rechambered to fire 88mm ammunition, a makeshift solution that reduces accuracy even further. The Home Guard batteries have no sophisticated fire control equipment, no Würzburg radars, no electronic computers, often just a basic optical rangefinder and mechanical calculations. They're restricted to barrage fire, filling zones of sky with explosions and hoping bombers fly through them. It's the least efficient form of flak, and it's what an increasing percentage of Germany's air defenses are reduced to by late 1944. The effect on performance is devastating. In 1939 to 1940, German flak averaged 805 rounds per aircraft destroyed. By 1944, the 88mm batteries averaged 16,000 rounds per kill. 16,000 rounds. At 80 Reichsmarks per shell, that's 280,000 RM. Over $500,000 per aircraft destroyed. But look closer at the numbers. That 16,000 round average is heavily skewed by the Home Guard batteries and the crews with minimal training. The 128mm batteries, all crewed by professional Luftwaffe soldiers, the best trained men in the flak arm, average only 3,000 rounds per kill in 1944. 3,000 versus 16,000. Same year. Same enemy. Same basic technology. The difference is the crews. Unfortunately for Germany, there are only 556 of the 128mm guns by the end of 1944. They represent about 5% of the total heavy flak inventory. The other 95%, crewed by teenagers, old men, women, and whoever else can be scraped together. The deterioration is exponential. In 1942, flak batteries lose an average of 42 heavy guns per month to wear damage or destruction. In 1943, 126 per month. In 1944, 326 per month. In 1944, 2080 per month. 9 times the 1942 rate. Gun barrels are worn smooth from firing beyond their service life, but there's no time to replace them. No spare barrels. A crisis. Superheated gases and shrapnel kill everyone within 20 feet. It's the risk they accept. They have no choice. June 6, 1944. D-Day. The Allied invasion of Normandy triggers a crisis for the German air defense network. The Luftwaffe immediately transfers 140 heavy and 50 light FLAK batteries from the Reich's defenses to France. FLAK Corps 3 moves to the Normandy beaches to support ground forces. It's the beginning of the hemorrhage. For 4 years, the FLAK batteries defending Germany have been the priority. Cities, factories, oil refineries, all protected by ever-increasing numbers of guns. Now, as Allied armies advance into France, the priorities shift. The immediate crisis is the front, not the cities back home. Batteries pull out of their prepared positions in the Ruhr around Berlin defending synthetic oil plants. They're loaded onto trains and rushed west. Some never arrive. Allied fighter bombers strafe the trains. P-47 Thunderbolts and Hawker Typhoons hunting anything that moves on German railways. The batteries that do reach France discover that Allied tactical air power is overwhelming. For every German gun there are 10 Allied aircraft. Artillery pounds FLAK positions. Fighter bombers attack with rockets and bombs. FLAK Corps 3 claims 25 aircraft destroyed in the weeks after D-Day. They also claim about 100 Allied tanks destroyed, the 88mm proving its worth in its original anti-tank role. But the Corps suffers considerable material and personnel losses. Batteries are ground down, attrited, eventually overwhelmed. And every battery lost in France is one less battery defending the Reich. Summer 1944. The strategic bombing campaign reaches its crescendo. The 8th Air Force flying from Italy adds another 1,400 Liberators and flying fortresses. Bomber Command contributes 1,300 Lancasters and Halifaxes. On any given day, the Allies can put 5,700 heavy bombers in the air. 5,700. Germany's FLAK defenses, even at their peak, were designed to handle raids of a few hundred bombers. Now they face armadas. The statistics from June through August 1944 tell the story. 8th Air Force, June 104.5. Bombers lost to FLAK 2, 642. Damaged July 93. Lost 3, 881. Damaged August, 144. Lost 4, 444. Damaged 15th. Air Force, June 75. Bombers lost to FLAK 904. Damaged July 140. Damaged 140. Damaged August 88. Lost 640. Damaged. In 3 months, FLAK destroys 654.5 heavy bombers and damages 14,329 more. But context matters. The 8th Air Force flies approximately 90,000 sorties in those 3 months. The loss rate to FLAK is under 1%. 1% sounds acceptable, sustainable, except 98% of all bomber damage is from FLAK. Fighters account for almost no damage by mid-1944. The long-range escort fighters, P-51 Mustangs with drop tanks, have neutered the German fighter force. That means every damaged bomber is a FLAK victory. Every crew member wounded, every aircraft forced to abort, every bomb load jettisoned early, FLAK. An Allied intelligence report from September 1944 states during the past year enemy FLAK defenses have been concentrated and our bombers faced many more guns. The percentage of bombers lost to or damaged by enemy fighters has declined sharply, while the percentage lost to FLAK has declined only moderately. The percentage damaged by FLAK has remained almost constant. Translation fighters are becoming irrelevant. FLAK remains deadly. Monthly, between 360 and 453 American bombers return with FLAK damage. Every month, some damage is minor, a few holes in the wings. Some damage is catastrophic. 2 engines out, hydraulics gone, half the crew wounded. The maintenance crews work around the clock, patching holes, replacing engines, rebuilding damaged aircraft. The bomber offensive grinds forward inexorable. But the price is measured in FLAK damage. For the German FLAK crews, summer 1944 is desperation. Ammunition shortages begin in earnest. Factories can't keep up with consumption. Allied bombing of chemical plants and nitrogen production facilities creates no nitrogen means no explosives. No explosives means no FLAK shells. Batteries receive reduced allocations. Instead of unlimited ammunition, they're rationed. Save shells for confirmed targets. No more barrage fire, except in emergencies. To stretch supplies, some shells are filled partially with rock salt as an inert filler. They explode, but with reduced fragmentation. Less lethal, but better than nothing. Gun barrels continue to wear out faster than they can be replaced. By mid-1944, many 88mm positions are firing guns that have exceeded their rated service life by thousands of rounds. Accuracy suffers. The shells don't fly true. The trajectories deviate from calculations. But the guns keep firing. What else can they do? Meanwhile, Allied electronic countermeasures have evolved. The simple aluminum strips of window are now supplemented by active jamming. Aircraft equipped with powerful transmitters broadcast noise across radar frequencies. Carpet jammers create a screen of electronic interference. The Würzburg radars, already degraded by window, face layered jamming. Operators struggle to distinguish real targets from false returns. In clear weather optical fire, directors still work. But clear weather is a luxury, and even optical systems are limited by the maximum effective range of the guns. The B-17s fly at 25,000 to 27,000 feet, at the absolute edge of the 88mm ceiling. The most common gun in the German arsenal can barely reach them, and at maximum range accuracy, plummets. The 127 to 28,000 feet, above them, around them, darting through the formation like sharks around whales, P-51 Mustangs, 300 escort fighters. Harper has flown 18 missions. Hess seen German fighters exactly twice. The Mustangs keep them away, or there simply aren't enough Luftwaffe fighters left to challenge formations this large. But FLAK is everywhere. IP in 2 minutes, the navigator calls. The initial point, the turn onto the bomb run. Harper sees it before the first shells arrive. The dark smudge on the horizon, that means concentrated FLAK. Dozens of batteries firing in coordinated patterns. Here it comes, he mutters. The first burst appears 1,000 feet ahead, then closer. Then the formation is flying through a storm of black smoke and red flashes. The B-17 rocks from a near miss. Shrapnel rattles through the fuselage. The bombardier, lying prone in the nose, doesn't even flinch. Hess, eyes locked on the Norden bomb site, making tiny adjustments. Another burst closer. Harper feels the concussion through his boots. A fort 2 positions ahead takes a direct hit. The entire front section, nose, cockpit, forward fuselage, just disintegrates. The bomber's tail section, engine still running, tumbles backward through the formation before plunging earthward. Steady, the pilot says. His voice is calm. Professional. They've both learned to accept what they can't control. You fly straight and level on the bomb run. The FLAK either kills you, or it doesn't. Worrying about it changes nothing. Bombs away. The B-17 leaps. 11 500-pound bombs tumbling toward the target below. Let's go home. The formation wheels away. Behind them, explosions ripple across an industrial target Harper doesn't even know the name of. Ahead, 200 miles of flak-defended airspace before they reach Allied lines. They make it. Not everyone does. This is what the air war looks like by late 1944. Massive formations. Overwhelming numbers. Unstoppable momentum. The 8th Air Force flies missions with 1-200 bombers. The 15th Air Force adds 600 more. Bomber Command contributes another 700 at night. That's 500 heavy bombers in a 24-hour period. The German flak defenses shoot down perhaps 10, maybe 15 on a bad day. They damage hundreds, but damage doesn't stop the bombs from falling. The mathematics are brutal. The Allies can sustain a 1% loss rate indefinitely. They're building bombers faster than Germany can shoot them down. But for the men in the bombers, that 1% is very real. Every mission is a roll of the dice. You're statistically likely to survive. But someone in the formation won't. Will it be the crew to your left, to your right, or you? The psychological studies document the toll. Anxiety, hypervigilance, inability to sleep. Some crews develop elaborate pre-flight rituals, lucky charms, specific sequences of actions, prayers. Anything to impose order on chaos, to feel some control over the uncontrollable. Many crews count missions. 25 missions, then you rotate home. Or 30. Or 35, depending on policy changes. Each mission is one step closer to survival. Or one step closer to the mission where your luck runs out. The FLAK is the constant. Fighters come and go. Weather changes. Targets vary. But FLAK is always there. Black puffs in the sky. The crack of explosions. The rattle of shrapnel. Every single mission. One 8th Air Force lieutenant will later write, "I think I feared FLAK more than I feared fighters. At least with fighters you could shoot back." For the German crews, late 1944 is despair disguised as duty. 16-year-old Günther Schultz mans a loader position on an 88mm battery outside Cologne. Has been on the gun for 4 months. Has seen 3 different gun commanders. The first transferred to the Eastern Front, the second killed when a B-17 dropped its bomb load directly on the battery position during a raid, the third wounded 2 weeks ago, and not yet replaced. The current commander is a 58-year-old Home Guard volunteer. Is a good man. Patient. Tries to keep morale up. But Hes not a professional soldier. And everyone knows it. When the American formations come, and they come almost every day now, Schultz and his crew fire until the barrels glow red. They fire until ammunition runs low. They fire until the raid passes. They rarely hit anything. Oh, they claim hits. The gun commander calls them in. Target damaged, high probability of destruction. It goes in the reports. It keeps morale up. But Schultz watches the bombers through the smoke. He sees the formations hold together. He sees them continue to target. The bombs still fall. The factories still burn. His battery has painted 2 white rings on the barrel. 2 confirmed kills, supposedly. Schultz doesn't believe it. He thinks maybe one was real. A B-17 that was already damaged, losing altitude, falling behind the formation. They hit it, and it went down. The second ring? Wishful thinking. But they keep firing. Every raid. Every day. What else can they do? Surrender the sky without a fight. Some targets remain deadly despite everything. Vienna. February 7, 1945. Clear weather. Heavy defenses. The 15th Air Force attacks oil facilities near the Austrian capital. Vienna's FLAK batteries, still manned by a corps of professional crews, put up a wall of steel. 19 bombers fall. Some estimates say 25. All to FLAK. The fighter escort keeps German fighters away. The bombers have clear runs to target. But the FLAK is waiting. Berlin, February 3, 1945. The mission that opened this story. 1,003 bombers. The largest single-day raid on Berlin of the entire war. The Luftwaffe doesn't send fighters. Can't send fighters. They've been grounded by fuel shortages, by losses, by the simple impossibility of challenging a force that large. The FLAK batteries are alone, and they destroy 21 to 25 bombers in perfect visual conditions. It proves that even at this late stage, even with degraded equipment and partly trained crews, concentrated FLAK over heavily defended targets remains lethal. But these are exceptions. Most days, most targets, the FLAK damages but doesn't stop. March 1945. Germany is collapsing. Soviet armies are across the Oder River 40 miles from Berlin. American and British forces are across the Rhine, driving into the heart of Germany from the west. And still the bombers come. The strategic bombing campaign is supposed to be winding down. The Germans are clearly defeated. But the missions continue. Cutting transportation networks. Destroying remaining industrial capacity. Eliminating any chance of last-minute resistance. For the FLAK batteries, March 1945 is catastrophe. Between January 12 and February 28, 41 heavy and 35 light FLAK batteries are lost on the Oder front alone. Overrun by Soviet armor. Destroyed in artillery barrages. Abandoned when their positions become untenable. Those batteries don't just disappear. They represent hundreds of guns, thousands of men, irreplaceable equipment. And the losses in the east mean fewer batteries defending against bombers in the west. By March 11, the ammunition situation reaches critical. The entire Wehrmacht receives 1/3 of required ammunition. For the FLAK arm, this means batteries firing only when targets are certain. No harassment fire. No barrage patterns. Every shell must count. Joseph Goebbels, now utterly detached from reality, writes in his diary on March 21. A large proportion of Berlin's FLAK has been sent to the front. Those units remaining behind have few ammunition reserves. It's an understatement. Berlin's vaunted air defenses are hollow. The guns remain in place, but the shells are gone. The crews are there, but they're down to handfuls of ammunition. When the American bombers come, the FLAK is sporadic. Weak. Nothing like the Iron Curtain of 19. The crews fire what they have. Then, they wait. No reinforcements coming. No resupply. Just the radio reports of Soviet armies getting closer. In the desperation, the Germans try anything. April 9, 1945. Munich. A battery conducts field trials of an experimental ammunition type Doppelzünder. Dual-fused rounds with both contact and timed fuses. If the shell comes close to an aircraft, the time fuse detonates it. If it actually hits the aircraft, the contact fuse detonates it instantly. It's the same round that someone in Albert Speer's ministry refused to support in 1944 over safety concerns during transportation. Now, with defeat imminent, safety concerns are irrelevant. The trial results are extraordinary. 13 aircraft destroyed. Only 370 rounds expended. That's 28 rounds per kill, compared to the 16,000 round average for standard 88mm ammunition in 1944. 43 times more efficient. But it's April 1945. There is no time for production. No facilities to manufacture them. No ammunition plants left unbombed. The discovery is filed. Forgotten. Another experimental system, the Kulmbach radar. Advanced fire control that reduces rounds per kill to under 300. Germany has 2 prototypes by war's end. 2. Too little, too late. Dresden. February 13, 1945. The firestorm that kills approximately 25,000 people happens in part because Dresden has been stripped of its flak batteries. The Luftwaffe moved the guns to more critical targets: Berlin oil refineries, tank factories. Dresden was considered relatively unimportant. Not a major industrial center. More of a cultural city. So when the RAF comes on the night of February 13th, the city's defenses are minimal. The bombers achieve extraordinarily tight concentration. The markers burn bright. The main force follows them in with devastating accuracy. The firestorm that follows is apocalyptic, but it might not have happened, or might have been less concentrated, if the FLAK had scattered the bombing pattern. Instead, the bombs fall with textbook precision. It's the final irony of the German air defense shell game. Moving batteries to protect high-priority targets means leaving other cities vulnerable. And when the bombers come to those undefended cities, the casualties are catastrophic. April 19, 1945. Italy. The 15th Air Force conducts an unusual mission: flak busting. B-24 Liberators flying at over 24,000 feet drop 260-pound fragmentation bombs on German flak positions. The goal isn't just to destroy guns. It's to demoralize crews. Force them to abandon their positions. Make them afraid to man their weapons. It's a measure of how seriously the Allies take flak that they devote heavy bombers, strategic assets, to attacking anti-aircraft positions. General Elwood Pete Quesada, commanding the 9th Air Force, calls flak busting like a man biting a dog. It's unnatural. Dangerous. Most pilots hate the missions more than regular bombing raids, but they fly them anyway. Because even in April 1945, even with Germany collapsing, the flak remains dangerous enough that the Allies want it eliminated. April 25, 1945. The last major American bombing raid of the European War. 595 heavy bombers, 307 B-17s, and 288 B-24s attack targets across Germany and Austria. The flak shoots down 0 bombers. 0. But it damages 200. 4 are damaged so severely they're classified as Category E, damaged beyond repair. They'll never fly combat again. 200 damaged aircraft. No kills. It's the perfect metaphor for the flak situation in April 1945. Still dangerous. Still capable of hurting the enemy, but unable to stop them. The same day in Berlin, the 128mm guns, atop the massive concrete flak towers, depress their barrels towards street level. Soviet infantry and tanks are in the city. The flak towers, designed as anti-aircraft fort, full circle. The flak has returned to direct fire like the anti-aircraft guns of World War I. History doesn't repeat, but it echoes. The final accounting. At its peak in February 1944, Germany's flak defenses include 13,500 heavy guns, 21,000 light guns, 7,000 searchlights, and 2 400 barrage balloons. Over 1 million people serve in the flak arm by 1944. 1 million. Soldiers, teenage boys, women, old men, everyone who can load a shell or operate a searchlight. That's more personnel than the entire Luftwaffe fighter force. More than some entire armies on the Eastern Front. The resources devoted to flak are staggering. Tens of thousands of tons of steel for gun barrels, millions of shells, radar systems, fire directors, optical equipment, ammunition factories working around the clock. Studies show that flak forces bombers to fly higher, reducing bombing accuracy. FLAK forces formations to take evasive action, scattering bomb patterns. FLAK damages thousands of aircraft, reducing the number of missions they can fly. The psychological impact alone is significant. Every Allied airman who flew over Germany remembers the FLAK. The black puffs, the shrapnel, the aircraft exploding. A study of bomber command crews in early 1943 found only 17% could expect to survive 30 operational missions. The average bomber lifespan was 40 flying hours. FLAK was a major factor in those statistics. And the hidden contributions, the bombers damaged by FLAK, and then finished by fighters, the missions aborted due to FLAK damage, the bombs jettisoned early to escape FLAK zones. These are nearly impossible to quantify, but certainly significant. General Henry Hap Arnold, commanding the U.S. Army Air Forces, will later say, "We never conquered the German FLAK artillery." Think about that. The Allies won the war, utterly defeated Germany, achieved total air superiority, but they never conquered the FLAK. Right up to April 1945, American bombers are taking FLAK damage. Right up to the end, crews fear the black puffs. Right up to the last mission, the Germans are firing back. Return to Obergefreiter, Klaus Becker. February 3, 1944. Berlin. That moment when 21 bombers fell from the sky over the German capital. That moment of confidence, of power. Becker believed the sky belonged to them. He was wrong. Within 18 months, his crew would be gone. Some transferred to the Eastern Front, never to return. Some killed in bombing raids. Yes, the FLAK crews themselves became targets, their positions plastered by Allied bombers seeking to eliminate the defenses. Some simply disappeared in the chaos of Germany's collapse. The 128mm gun Becker commanded? By April 1945, it's manned by a mixed crew, 3 professional Luftwaffe soldiers, 2 teenage Flakhelfer, 1 female auxiliary, and a 60-year-old Home Guard volunteer. They have 43 shells remaining, total, for a gun designed to fire hundreds of rounds per engagement. When the Soviet armies reach Berlin, the gun fires its remaining ammunition at ground targets. Then the crew abandons the position. The massive concrete FLAK tower, built to withstand anything the Allies could throw at it, becomes a Soviet strongpoint. The Red Army uses it as an observation post and radio station. It still stands today. A brutalist monument to Germany's desperate air defense. Let's talk about what graveyard really means in the title. It's not just about Allied bombers falling from the sky, though thousands did. It's about the graveyard of German cities. Hamburg, Dresden, Cologne, Berlin. Ancient centers of culture reduced to rubble. It's about the graveyard of German industry. Factories bombed into twisted metal, oil refineries destroyed, transportation networks obliterated. It's about the graveyard of German manpower, 1 million people in the FLAK arm, who could have been building tanks, flying fighters, defending on the ground. Instead, they stood beside anti-aircraft guns firing at targets they could barely reach. It's about the graveyard of those teenage Flakhelfer, 15, 16, 17 years old, pulled from school to man the guns. How many died? How many survived but were traumatized? How many lost their adolescence feeding shells into breaches while their cities burned? It's about the graveyard of German hopes. In 1940, Hitler believed the FLAK belt would make Germany impregnable. In 1943, he believed expanded FLAK forces would stop the bombing. In 1945, the truth was undeniable. The sky wasn't theirs. It never was. The numbers one final time for perspective. Over the course of the war, German FLAK forces averaged 343 rounds of heavy FLAK ammunition per aircraft destroyed. Light FLAK averages 940 rounds per kill. At 80 Reichsmarks per 88mm shell, That's 267,440 RM. About $107,000 in 1945 dollars for each heavy flak kill. Expensive. Incredibly expensive. But compare it to the cost of a trained fighter pilot. The cost of the aircraft. The cost of aviation fuel, which Germany desperately lacked. The cost of the infrastructure, airfields, maintenance facilities, spare parts. When you factor in all those hidden costs, FLAK might actually have been more cost-effective than fighters. And FLAK had one advantage: IT levers. Fighters get sand. IT Lee. In chest. Not sand. Not sand. Weil lied. In weather that grounded fighters, the FLAK guns kept firing. In 1944 alone, those guns destroyed 385 aircraft and damaged 27,000 more. But they couldn't stop 1.2 million tons of bombs. They slowed it, made it expensive, made it dangerous. They couldn't stop it. April 25, 1945, 11:47 a.m. 26,000 feet over southern Germany. Second Lieutenant Robert Chen, bombardier, in a B-17 with the 398th Bomb Group, watches the target approach through his Norden bomb sight. It's a marshalling yard. Railway junction. The kind of target they've been hitting for weeks now, cutting the transportation network, making it impossible for German forces to move. The war is nearly over. Everyone knows it. The Soviets are in Berlin. American and British armies are meeting up with Russian forces in central Germany. Scattered pockets of resistance remain, but organized resistance is collapsing. This might be Chen's last combat mission. And still the FLAK comes up. Not the dense wall they encountered over Berlin 2 years ago. Chen makes his final adjustments. The crosshairs settle on the target. The intervalometer begins its clicking sequence. Bombs away. The B-17 lifts as 2 tons of high explosive drop free. Chen watches the bombs fall, watches them impact, watches the explosions ripple across the rail yard. Another target destroyed. Another mission complete. As the formation wheels for home, Chen looks back. The FLAK has stopped. The battery must be out of ammunition, or maybe they've abandoned their position. He feels nothing. Not triumph, not relief, just exhaustion. Has flown 32 missions. Has seen friends die. Has dropped over 60 tons of bombs on Germany. Has been shot at by FLAK on every single mission. And has survived. That's all that matters now. Survival. Somewhere below, Günther Schultz, the teenage loader we met earlier, watches the American formation fly away. His battery fired 63 shells during the raid. They claimed no hits. They have 17 shells remaining. Total. For a gun that normally carries 200 rounds in ready storage, the gun commander, the 68-year-old Home Guard volunteer, gathers the crew. That's it, he says. No more ammunition coming. When those 17 shells are gone, we're done. What do we do? One of the younger boys asks. The commander shrugs. We wait for orders. Or we wait for the Americans to arrive. Whichever comes first. Schultz looks at the gun. His gun. The weapon has served for 7 months. 2 white rings painted on the barrel. Kills he doesn't believe in. The barrel is worn smooth. The paint is chipped. The hydraulic system leaks. The optical sight is cracked. It's a wreck. They're all wrecks. The war is over. They just haven't admitted it yet. The bitter truth is this: German FLAK crews thought the sky was theirs because in 1942 and early 1943 they were winning. The guns were working. The bombers were falling. The defenses were holding. But they mistook tactical success for strategic advantage. Yes, they shot down bombers. Yes, they damaged thousands more. Yes, they made the Allied air campaign expensive and dangerous. But they never had the numbers to win. They never had the resources to sustain the defense indefinitely. They were fighting an enemy who could absorb losses, rebuild, and come back stronger. Every bomber shot down was replaced by 2 more. Every damaged aircraft was repaired or replaced. The Allied industrial base was untouchable across the Atlantic or in Britain beyond the reach of German retaliation. Germany's industrial base was right there, in the Ruhr, in Berlin, in 100 cities and towns across the Reich. Within range of Allied bombers, the FLAK could protect those targets temporarily. But temporarily isn't enough when you're defending a fixed position against an enemy with unlimited attempts to attack it. Eventually, through attrition, through overwhelming numbers, through sheer persistence, the Allied bombers would get through. The bombs would fall, the factories would burn, and the FLAK crews, professional soldiers, teenage boys, women, old men, would stand at their guns and fire back, knowing it wasn't enough, knowing it would never be enough, but firing anyway because the alternative was surrender. There is a photograph taken in May 1945, Berlin after the surrender. It shows an 88mm flak gun still in its prepared position. The barrel is elevated at 45 degrees, frozen in place, pointing at a sky that no longer holds enemy bombers. The gun is surrounded by spent shell casings, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, piled around the position like brass snowdrifts. The crew is gone. Fled, captured, killed. The photo doesn't say. Just the gun, and the shells, and the silence. That photograph captures the end of the German flak story better than any statistics. A weapon that fired tens of thousands of rounds, that destroyed thousands of aircraft, that dominated the sky over Germany for years. Now silent. Abandoned. Pointing at nothing. General Henry Hap Arnold's assessment was correct. We never conquered the German flak artillery. Right up to the last day, Allied bomber crews feared it. Right up to the end, aircraft returned with flak damage. The last major raid on April 25 damaged 200 bombers, 4 beyond repair. But unconquered doesn't mean victorious. The flak made the Allied air campaign expensive, made it dangerous, made it costly in lives and aircraft. The flak couldn't stop it. And in the end, that's what mattered. By May 1945, Germany lay in ruins. 3.6 million dwellings destroyed. 300,000 civilians killed by bombing. 70% of major cities heavily damaged or destroyed. The flak batteries that were supposed to prevent this stood silent, out of ammunition, out of crews, out of hope. The mathematical reality was brutal. Germany deployed 13,500 heavy flak guns at peak strength. The Allies could on a single day send 5,700 heavy bombers. That's a ratio of 1 gun for every 0.42 bombers. And the bombers kept coming, day after day, night after night, in numbers that made defense impossible. Tier, a memorial in Hamburg, a small plaque, easy to miss. It commemorates the 40,000 people who died in the firestorm of July 27, 28, 1943. The night window was used for the second time. The night the flak batteries fired blind into a sky they couldn't see. The night the city burned. Standing at that memorial, you can see the flak tower, Heiligengeistfeld, in the distance, one of Hamburg's massive concrete fortresses. It's been converted, now civilized, turned into a media center and entertainment venue. But the concrete walls are original, 6 feet thick, designed to withstand direct hits from the heaviest bombs. They succeeded. The tower survived the war intact, a monument to German engineering and German desperation. From the tower's original anti-aircraft positions, you could see the entire city. The docks, the warehouses, the the residential districts. The FLAK crews stationed there had a perfect view as Hamburg burned. They watched 40,000 people die, while their radar screens showed false returns, and their guns fired uselessly into aluminum foil clouds. They had the best position, the best equipment, the best fields of fire, and they were helpless. That's the story of the German FLAK forces in a single image: power without effect, weapons without victory, defenses that couldn't defend. For the Allied bomber crews who survived the FLAK left permanent marks, physical scars, shrapnel wounds, injuries from rough landings and damaged aircraft, hearing loss from thousands of hours of engine noise and exploding shells, and psychological scars. Veterans' accounts are filled with references to FLAK. The black puffs, the sound, a sharp crack followed by the rattle of shrapnel, the randomness of it, the helplessness. John Comer, the flight engineer we met earlier, survived his tour. He wrote a memoir decades later. In it, he devotes pages to describing FLAK, the terror, the uncertainty, the mathematics of survival. Every mission I would count the FLAK bursts, he wrote. If I saw 10 bursts near our aircraft and we weren't hit, think the odds are getting better. If I saw 50 bursts and we still weren't hit, think the next one has our name on it. There was no logic to it, just fear and superstition, and the desperate need to impose order on chaos. Thousands of bomber crew members came home with similar psychological wounds. Some adjusted, some didn't. All of them carried the memories. The FLAK may not have stopped the bombing campaign, but it wounded everyone who flew through it. Even in defeat, it achieved that much. The final word belongs to Feldwebel Heinrich Müller, the professional gun commander we met at the beginning. Remember him. The career Luftwaffe soldier with 3 white rings on his gun barrel. He survived the war. Barely. In late 1944, his battery was transferred to the Eastern Front. The FLAK hemorrhage in action. They used their 88mm guns as anti-tank weapons against Soviet armor. Müller's gun destroyed 2 T-34 tanks before a Katyusha rocket barrage obliterated the position. He was wounded, shrapnel in his leg and back, but evacuated before the Soviets overran the sector. He spent the last months of the war in a hospital in Bavaria. When the Americans arrived, he became a prisoner of war. After his release in 1946, an interviewer asked him about his service, about the FLAK battles, about the bombers he shot down. Müller was quiet for a long time. "We thought we were winning," he finally said. "In 42-43, we thought the defenses were working. The bombers were falling. Our cities were still standing." He paused. "Then I watched Hamburg burn, Cologne, Berlin. I watched the formations get bigger. I watched our ammunition run out. I watched them replace my trained crew with children." Another pause. "We weren't winning. We were just dying slower." The interviewer asked if he thought the FLAK effort was worthwhile, if it achieved anything. Müller shrugged. "We made them pay," he said. "Every bomber they sent over Germany, they knew they might not come back. Every crew that flew over our positions, they were scared. We did that. Was it worth it?" Müller looked away. "I don't know. I'm alive. My country is destroyed. 55,000 of my comrades in the FLAK arm are dead. Was it worth it?" He had no answer. No one does. The sky was never theirs. That's the truth the German FLAK crews learned between 1943 and 1945. In early 1943, they had the guns. They had the training. They had the defenses. They shot down bombers by the dozens and damaged hundreds more. It felt like victory. It felt like control. But control is an illusion when you're outnumbered 10-1. When the enemy can absorb your victories and return stronger. When your resources are finite and theirs are effectively unlimited. The sky became a graveyard, not just for the aircraft that fell, but for the cities below, for the people who died, for the crews who stood at the guns knowing they were losing. By April 1945, the once formidable FLAK defenses were shadows. Teenage boys with worn-out guns and handfuls of ammunition. Old men firing at formations they couldn't reach. Women operating searchlights that illuminated nothing but their own futility. The last missions of the war saw American bombers damaged but not destroyed, hurt but not stopped, inconvenienced but not deterred. The FLAK forces, those million men, women, and children who stood at anti-aircraft positions across Germany, achieved tactical victories and strategic defeat. They shot down 385 aircraft in 1944 alone. Over the entire war, perhaps 12,000 to 15,000 Allied aircraft fell to FLAK. But 1.2 million tons of bombs fell on Germany. The mathematics were brutal. The outcome, inevitable. The sky wasn't theirs. It became their graveyard. And the bitter echo of those 88mm guns, the black puffs in the sky, the white rings on barrels, they're all that remains of Germany's desperate attempt to defend the indefensible. In the end, General Arnold was right. The Allies never conquered the German FLAK. But they didn't need to. They just needed to outlast it. And they did.